All right, and we are live. And I know Thursday night football is about to come on, so we'll have you out of here in just a few minutes. This is Sports Business Insider, and we are your host, Denzel Snipes. Also, the man himself, MLB/slash NFL sports agent Sean Russey. We are coming to you live on the Sideline Sports Network. Uh, be sure to check out all of our great shows not from, but of week after week. Uh, Top Rope Talk Mondays, hosted by yours truly. All pro wrestling all the time. Let's see. Oh, Sideline Sports Show. The Sideline Sports Show, the flagship show of the network, and Hawk Talk, all South Seahawks all the time. Wednesdays, the Gauntlet Presents Picked Off. It's our NFL pick show. Also, Confidential. We just did a World Series preview show just last night. And our season finale is slated to be next Wednesday. Either the series is going to still be going on, or in fact, yeah, it'll more likely still be going on. So that'll be like kind of like a mid World Series kind of update. Uh, Thursday, of course, us at Sports Business Insider, and then Fridays, the Gauntlet, our NFL centric show. So tune into all our great shows. We also got First and 56, the boys up in Indiana with the Indiana Coach Show and Indianapolis Coach Show, and we also have Ken's Pat Talk, Ken's Pat Show, excuse me, all New England Patriots all the time. So with that being said, Sean, how you doing tonight, man?
Everything's going good. How you doing, boss?
Doing good, doing real good. So let's go ahead and get to it. And that is, I know we got the Fall Classic is finally here. Yankees Dodgers, the marquee matchup that folks had been waiting for. But not much is really known about the business side unless you're kind of in that realm. And luckily, we have somebody who's in that realm. So this is the money side of World Series 2024. So tonight we're going to briefly discuss revenue, sponsorships, and the economic impact. Starting off, the World Series tickets, they've been the highest since 2016, which was Cubs Indians. Average ticket was $1,691 across the series. Sean, you want to go ahead and dive a little deeper into that and more details?
Yeah, so and obviously the ticket numbers are also based on the third party sales, the aftermarket sales, but the numbers are from 2016. So you're talking about 8 years removed to get to the numbers we're at for just game one. Obviously, we won't know the series average till after the final game is played, whether that's 4 games, whether that's 7 games. But for game one, it's at $1,800. So they would be setting, they would have the record right now if they continue at that pace. And obviously, like you said, it's the matchup that everybody's been looking forward to since the beginning of the season in terms of Ohtani and Judge and just all the stars on both sides. It's very rare you actually get the two teams that were pegged to make the World Series at the beginning, and then they actually make the World Series at the end there. So this is the one that everyone was really looking forward to. Now compare that to last year's series. Only $800 a ticket a game. Now those were two not big market teams and not obviously not market juggernauts on TV. So you could see the difference just from last year to this year. You're jumping up almost $1,000. And last year's series, of course, only went 5 games. So $800 average across that 5 games. So this series would have to see an extreme dip to even get near that $800 average after the game one is already going to start at $1,800.
I think one thing to also take into consideration is the cost of living at the locations of each team. New York and LA are hella expensive, so you can expect the tickets to be up there. Now, it's the World Series. I get it. They're going to be the most expensive tickets, that whole baseball season, right? But I think it's fair to say that, put it to you like this. Compare a World Series ticket from last year in Arlington with the Texas Rangers with one from this year with the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Yep, and that's like I said. So 800 to 1,800, and just like you said, the difference in cities, the difference in people that were probably traveled to see the Yankees and Dodgers versus traveling to see the Rangers and Diamondbacks. It's just the attraction, and obviously, baseball never frown. And that's one thing I give baseball credit for. They're never really caught in that conspiracy of, the NBA wanted to make sure that at least the Celtics made the finals. You see these matchups in baseballs where you go, it's the Rays and the Phillies. It's the Rangers and the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
And so and it's like you said, so the difference in those cities and those markets where, and it's not going to drive the national attention, even though it is the World Series. It's not like the Super Bowl. I would say, I would even dare to say, it's not like the NBA Finals when you've got two small markets like that. So really,
Right.
the biggest money for that series came from the local, the local fans, the local media, local Texas, local Arizona. Versus for this series, people are traveling for this game that are not Yankees and Dodgers fans.
Yeah. The crazy part about you mentioning, the size of the market, small market versus large market, is you notice how they they say large market LA, large market New York, large market even Chicago. But then everyone else is small market. Despite the fact that Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States, Phoenix is the fifth. So it's kind of hard, at least in my opinion, to believe them to be small market teams. Now, if you were to say like I don't know, Minneapolis, Minnesota, okay, fine. you know if you wanted to even say Seattle, okay, cool. And even then, I mean, it's a major city. I mean, I know all teams are in major cities, but when you got cities that are in the top 10 or the top 5 most populous in the United States, in my opinion, it's hard to call them small market.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just a different economy there, right? That the prices are different on everything. You compare what even a normal game would be in Texas compared to what it would be in New York, and the ticket price is going to be much different. So
Yeah.
like you stated earlier, just that market itself being what it is, small or even shouldn't be qualified as small. The prices will always be different because of the cost of living that surrounds the market.
Yeah, and maybe there's another parameter. Maybe they're looking at it as the total number of professional sports teams in a city. You look at LA and they've got two of everything. You look at New York, they got two of everything. There's even two Chicago teams. But again, that's just three. Me, I think, okay, you got four North American major professional sports. If you clear three of them, you should be considered a large market.
I agree, and I think it more goes. I think it goes towards sometimes how these owners spends, and it gets the team qualified a certain way. Like, I wouldn't say that, like you said about Texas. I wouldn't say that Tampa is a small market, but the Rays play like a small market team.
Right. No, absolutely. And you know what? That'd be a little different from, say, okay, Nashville, they only have the Titans. That would be a small market, you know?
100%, 100%. And like you said, there's a lot of teams in Texas. Not just in baseball. They've got two in basketball. They've got hockey. So they have all the sports because they've got two in, right, still two in, yes, two in football. And at one point they had three in football before the Titans, the Oilers became the Titans.
Yeah.
Um, and then now you've got the Texans and all that's gone. But so they've got major sports teams, and it's like you said, it's just a difference in the cost of economic living there. When you can look at New York and LA and go, yeah, gas is $2 more than it is in Texas, and you can relate that to almost everything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so, with that being said, going on to the economic impact. If you want to touch on the ones from, let's see. Oh no, actually, no, no, no. We did economic impact, gate receipts, and sponsorships. Of course, the sponsorships are off. It's going to be major sponsors all over the place. Gate receipts. Looking at it, 1985 had 9 million, 2010 had 19.7. 2022 had 38.7. 2023 has 63 million. Now, also keep in mind before people think, oh, less people were watching baseball back then. Consider inflation and how much $9 million
Right.
from 1985 is worth today.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So I mean, it looks like a drastic drop, but like you said, what would 9 million back then be today? So it's not as drastic as it looks on paper. Um, and I think the sport, in for argument's sakes, I honestly would say baseball was more rabid for fan bases in terms of the '80s and the '90s. I think as much as they have a newer fan base because you've got these younger kids coming in and doing different things that used to be against the baseball unwritten rule book, and those things are taking off and becoming popular. I think the '80s and '90s you had more rabid fan bases in baseball than you do now.
Right.
I think there's a few certain stadiums you can still go to and you get that environment, but I think it was just as popular. And like you said, the money value pretty much equals out to what they're doing today. What we see in these differences is really is who was in the World Series those years in terms of why those money differences are there. Because there's even huge jumps in 2015 and 2016 to 38 million, and those is when big markets were in those games.
Right. No, absolutely. And then and some of these sponsors, of course, um, sponsorship revenue for 2023, and these some of the major ones, yeah, ESPN, Sport One, of course, MLB Network, Bell Media, Fox Sports, Sportsnet. Key sponsors: Nike, SeatGeek, Budweiser, Mastercard, Chevrolet, Geico, T-Mobile, um, and they collectively brought in 70.3 million. How about that?
Yeah, and for the way they do it, obviously it's much different than the Super Bowl, who gets millions of dollars for 30 seconds. And the MLB really keeps their loyalty to their sponsors. This will pretty much be the same sponsor list you see this year with MLB. And that's because they keep a loyalty to their same sponsors. Where I'm not saying the NFL doesn't, but the NFL will also sell the ad space to the highest bidder, obviously.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so I think MLB does that to one, not only keep the revenue, sponsorship revenue, knowing that it's going to be consistent with the little bit of economic inflation, it will go up year after year just a little bit. But they also know when they get a bigger game like this and a bigger series like this, those numbers just from those sponsors are going to go way up.
Right. No, no, and then to compare it to other sports, like for example, the Super Bowl economic impact could bring in 720 million, NBA Finals $100 million per city, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals $30 million for Stanley Cup per city. That's roughly 150 to 200 million for teams that make it there, and that's across 3 rounds of playoffs. If you want to wrap it up with that,
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we know the Super Bowl is the beast, right? It will always be king, I believe. In terms of economic impact. So 720 million, they really can't be touched in terms of that. They're just so far above in terms of how they generate that money. The NBA Finals, 100 million per city is not bad, especially figuring, again, sometimes they end up in those smaller markets
yeah,
with matchups that not necessarily everybody wants to see. But yet they still pull in 100 million for each of those cities. Now the NHL, obviously, rating wise on TV, I believe there's an argument to be made. Baseball and NHL kind of fight for that third spot rating wise on TV.
hmm
Um, so 30 million for just the Stanley Cup, I would say is pretty good. Especially when you consider NHL contracts are so long, you figure that still gives the teams a lot of wiggle room with that profit space each year. Now, if you actually clear the 3 rounds like Edmonton did this year, Edmonton generated 150 to 200 million. But like you've stated and like we talked about here, they had to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals to generate that number.
right.
Versus the NBA doing it just in the finals. If you add up the 3 rounds on top of the NBA Finals, you're probably looking at 200 or 250 million.
Yeah, yeah, and then, but then of course the Super Bowl. I mean, 720 million, in which a lot of people will say has for years taken over as America's favorite sport.
And a lot
So
of that is the ad space, right? The 30 seconds for $5 million, $7 million. That's where that
right,
number gets so big so fast.
yeah, and when you get sponsors like ESPN, McDonald's, Sprite, and especially in recent years with the whole betting was FanDuel, DraftKings and all them. Like when we were at the Super Bowl, man, FanDuel and DraftKings, they had the crowds there, and especially now in the progression of making betting legal, and
Yeah.
you have those kind of platforms and avenues, they're going to bring in a large chunk of the money as well. Of course, you have some OGs like Coca-Cola, Gatorade. You know, they're always going to be the surefire way to bring in some money.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, that's where I think you see MLB differ. It's always like the same Big 12 sponsors. Now they have more than 12 sponsors, right? Let's not get it wrong. There's a lot of small sponsors at the World Series, but these are their big guys, their loyal guys. And the NBA, I think the same way. Like you said, Gatorade's always on there. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they have their loyalties to certain ads that are always going to be shown during the NBA Finals. And I think that's the one area the Super Bowl differs in. I know they, monitor what's going to be shown in the ads because of everything that's happened in the past, but they let everything run from movie trailers for whatever genre of movie wants to pay for the ad to insurance ads, beer ads, it really doesn't matter to them. You want to pay for the space, you got it.
Okay. Now, one more question before we go off the air, and that is whenever individual players have sponsorships and deals. For example, Michael Jordan back in the day with Gatorade and McDonald's. Now he makes the NBA Finals. Um, is he? Well, he naturally just on the court is making the NBA money. But as far as his individual one, is that just money for him, or is some of that money going to the NBA too?
I mean, it would be obviously in the wording of his contract. My belief is in deals like that, especially back when they had the Olympic deals, when Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and him were all doing those commercials. Whatever's in their individual contract go to them, but then obviously I believe there is a contract before they choose the individual players for the group marketing, is what they consider it, that the NBA does get a piece of it, but the players still get their individual contracted rate. But it falls under what they call a group marketing program. So the NBA holds the negotiation at first in terms of, well, what's our piece? And then they kind of decide, kind of like the Madden cover athlete. Like everybody gets their piece of Madden, but the Madden cover athlete gets a little bit more. So
Oh,
everybody in the NBA gets their little piece of McDonald's, but Jordan, Bird, and Johnson were getting a little bit more.
a little bit more exactly. Okay. And well, that's where we'll wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in to the World Series, of course, and tune in to Confidential on Wednesday nights, where we will talk about such. All of our great shows on the Sideline Sports Network. Hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell for updates and details as well on YouTube. You can also follow us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and Facebook as well. So for myself, this is Sean Rusty as well, and we are Sports Business Insider. We will see you all next week.